episode 214. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman,
What up?
Philip Dassing,
What's going on?
Kyle Wagner,
Hey, guys.
and Alexis Schlegel.
Hello, everybody.
Well, hello, Alexis.
Hello, Matthew.
So I think number one tonight, I want to switch the topics up a little bit because I want to talk about this first. So Facebook has now banned, Alex Jones, InfoWars, Paul Joseph Watson, Louis Farrakhan, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Who's the other one, Phil?
Laura Loomer.
Yeah, so they're just going all through and banning, quote unquote, I would just call them, controversial characters, It's not like they're Nazis, although some people call them practically Nazis, but I just think that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and if you share it, you're probably going to get banned, too. Like if you share an InfoWars
Yeah, that's the other
article
thing. Apparently, if you share an InfoWars article and you're not denouncing InfoWars, you will get banned.
Yes.
But if you denounce InfoWars, you can still share it.
Seems fair.
Isn't this the anarcho-capitalist model where, private organization is ostracizing people it doesn't like or doesn't want?
Well, it's one thing to say, like, should Facebook be allowed to do this? It's another thing to say, well, should they do this?
Okay, that's fair.
And I mean, dude, I have
So
a
how
right.
do you-
I can complain about whatever the fuck I want,
So how do you answer those two questions? Personally.
Should they have the right to do this? Yes, they should have the right to do this. This is their private network. Are they being douchebags for doing this? I would say yes.
Yeah, I'd agree with your responses. I know.
Well, thank you, Kyle.
The alt-right guys that I know do think that it should be subject to like the same laws as the public square, and that this is a violation of free speech, and that the government should actually intervene to stop Facebook from banning people.
Government?
I think that's what they want, man. They want shit like that. They want net neutrality.
Well, isn't there? Because there's also the kind of this dicey thing where, like, if Facebook's a monopoly, and doesn't Facebook work with the government in a lot of ways, and isn't Facebook also shown to be the place where most people get their news? And then the fact that they're like this legal thing because they're like manipulating the algorithm, like they can be held accountable.
I don't know, but I mean, they're not part of the government in any way, shape, or form. They're not a monopoly. There's lots of other social media sites, and no one is prohibited from creating a competing social media site. I wouldn't even say that they have 90 or 100% of the market share, because there are other social media sites that have a significant share.
Dude, MySpace is awesome lately. If you checked it out.
Are you serious?
Friendster's pretty awesome.
All right.
Well, there's really.
Well, I think if you count Instagram and Facebook
Instagram's
together,
owned by Facebook.
right?
Instagram's owned by Facebook.
So maybe they do
Instagram,
have
they
close
banned-
to 90%.
they also banned everything else that they banned.
So there really isn't.
There isn't. Maybe I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe like us like talking about it on like a public forum. Is that like kind of like people are going to take that like, oh, see, look, they're begging for government interference, and we're not begging for government interference, and sometimes I feel like that's where a lot of this stuff is heading, and even Facebook themselves, the little Zuckerberg, he called out to for the government to regulate politics on social media, where he's already regulating on his site.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like he did that to really go after competition to stop somebody from making a quote unquote free social media page.
Yeah, I think
website. Yeah.
Well, it puts this whole thing puts libertarians in a awkward position where we have to say, okay, well, it is a private company, and
like in the back of a Volkswagen,
we support their right to to ban people or censor their site, and at the same time, we don't necessarily agree with the decisions that they make and the people they choose to censor. Right?
Yeah, no.
I mean, or do you guys agree with this choice? I mean, do you guys, are Alex Jones and Milo and these other people, are they too far right? Are they so far right that you guys think that they should be taken down?
Well, I feel like if you're going to take them down, I mean, take down like Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, take
well, those
down,
are Democrats, man.
Well,
that's a whole different. They're not getting taken down.
I'm just saying, if you're taking down like assholes,
No, I don't think you should be taking down anybody unless they're actually directly inciting violence.
Oh, this reminds me. You know what I heard? I heard that California is trying to do something legally where they get Trump off the ballot completely. you
That's
know,
hilarious.
in 2020. And I'm trying to remember the tie-in, but it's like, it just reminded me of the fact that it's like, hey, if you're going to take down these other right-wing people, why not take down Donald Trump's Facebook page?
Well, that's what half the comment section of the Washington Post says when they posted the article.
Take down
about
Trump, too,
They're like,
right?
why you need to take down Donald
Well,
Trump?
yeah,
He's
I mean,
take down all
Orange man
Republicans,
bad.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if Facebook was going to be like, you know, what am I? This word am I? Consistent. You know,
Yeah.
it's it would seem to me that, I mean, doesn't Trump say plenty more like offensive things, quote unquote offensive things, than say like Alex Jones or?
I'm sure the left believes so, yeah. And in fact, I'm sure a lot of them would prefer Trump get taken down rather than Alex Jones. I mean, what Alex
that
Jones
would be hilarious.
is a guppy fish next to Trump because he's the president. So I'm kind of surprised that we don't have two different, like the country's so polarized between left and right that the right doesn't have its own social media platforms. But it seems like the technology is all dominated by Democrats. Google and all the stuff they own, the search engines and YouTube. And Facebook being the two probably the biggest whales in that the tech sphere, and they're both pretty far left, you know.
Yeah.
So where's the right wing equivalent, or the libertarian equivalent for that matter?
Right. Well, I guess maybe Minds. You know, it doesn't like Minds and
Something none of us use.
Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But dude, wait! I thought all the rich people were evil right wing people. I thought that was the way things
It
were.
depends
No.
on the topic, Jared.
Yeah, a lot of people
I thought they were all Randian, like super libertarians.
No, they're mostly progressive Democrats, I think, you know.
Okay.
Which you wouldn't
Interesting.
expect because it's so much anti-rich rhetoric that you would think people like Bill Gates
but once you're
and
in that position,
Zuckerberg, who had a lot to lose, would be further
but they
right.
don't have anything to lose though, because once you're entrenched in that position, like maybe he was Republican in his early days, you know, secretly Republican, or conservative or whatever. But now that he's entrenched in that spot, he wants as much government as he can possibly get. That's why he's begging for Congress to step in and start regulating social media.
What was that article I saw that said that the something commission was going to be fining Facebook like several $1 million? I just saw it just recently. It just came to my mind. I completely forgot to talk about this, bring it up. But I think they were getting hit with some type of fine from some type of commission. I don't want to misspeak, but yeah, it is. You notice he's like, well, please, Mr. Government, come in here, regulate me harder. Like that's
Right, and so
essentially what
that's
they want.
Yeah, they don't want, you know, once you're in that position, you want the government to help you. You want the government to protect you. You know, if you're immoral, which a lot of these people are.
Kyle, is all this talk about positions getting you a little wood over there?
What? No. No. Well, I had a point, and now I forget what my point was. I know what it was. Have you guys noticed how like everything's like interconnected? You know, you log into all these apps, and it's like sign in with Facebook or sign in with Google. So if you were to set up all these other things with your Facebook or Google logins, and then you get banned from Facebook or Google, you could have a problem accessing.
Oh, yeah, you're
you know,
I mean, if they're good, if it's it's called OAuth, right? It's a form of security, authentication security, but so you can log in using your Facebook credentials, but typically they do store a sort of an independent login for you that you could basically just type in your email and password that you use for Facebook and still log in.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
So
It depends on how they have it set up, but typically that's how
That is kind of scary that everything is connected.
Well,
And then
yeah,
the
I mean,
other-
I try, and if someone gets into your Facebook account, then they can access anything that you are signed in with Facebook. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of dangerous. You got to, make sure you have two-factor authentication set up.
Well, then you have. I mean, granted, it was a meme, but you have like that Liberty meme was pretty good. Let me scroll here. Oh, so like, we're sorry, your Amazon smart refrigerator has denied you access to your groceries due to you visiting Infowars. You know, like this is what's trending. You know what I mean? Like since everything's interconnected, and
and as funny as
everybody knows those Alexas are listening to. I mean,
as funny as it is, it's like I feel like I could see it happening one day.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna allow any smart speaker, like anything. I mean, it's bad enough having like a smartphone.
Yeah.
But I mean, to allow like a smart refrigerator, smart TV, all these technologies that are interconnected, where we're big brothers
Yeah,
listening to
dude,
you all
we're
the time.
1984ing ourselves.
Well,
Yeah.
see, what I feel like what really sucks is, and I found this with like 5 years ago. I went to get a new washing machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everything at like fucking. I think we went to like Lowe's or something. Everything there was it like had like a computer screen in it, and it's like, no, I just want an analog washing machine, right? But I mean, literally everything there was digital, right? And my rationale besides that is, analog is just going to be easier to fix, and it doesn't have a circuit board, like computer inside of it that can get moisture in and then just start like doing crazy shit. So then 5 years go by, right? And then my washing machine goes up because the computer inside of it probably got moisture inside of it and starts doing like crazy shit. So it's So then we had to get another one.
Wash machine in Anarchy Basement's listening.
It's right
now.
there. It's watching.
It's listening to this conversation.
Despite the fact you have a camera recording.
Now,
this.
I think the one we replaced it with, I think we were able to find one that was a little more analog. So I hope this one will last better, and it seems to be performing better. For you guys that want to hear about that though.
Yeah,
but I mean that's just the point. And my point is
Go on,
my point is like 10
machine
years from now. 10 years from now, it's going to be hard to find anything that in the store that isn't quote unquote smart.
Yeah, right. Like Kyle's in the market for a new TV. Are you going to get a smart TV, man? Are you going to have to like cover the camera on it and the microphone?
Yeah, that reminds me. I was having a conversation with some coworkers the other day, and I actually mentioned Matt because we were talking about the ads. Like it's one thing when you just you're shopping for something and then an ad comes up in your feed, but it's weird when you're talking about something
dude, that's creepy
and
as
an
fuck. It
ad
happens a
comes
lot.
up in your feed, and you're like, "Is this thing listening?" Like, then my friends were like, "Yeah, it's a two-way microphone and it listens to your conversations, and if you're talking about golf or whatever, it's going to give you ads for golf clubs." And I was like, I do not like that at all. That is super creepy. And I was like, my buddy Matt has a flip phone. He was like, I think he's got it right.
I told you guys a while ago. I found out it was what the Free Thought Project put out. They put out that your phone's listening and how to stop it. And I checked it out and I was like, legit. I went and I found in my archives in my phone, I found hundreds of 10 to 30 second clips that I was recording that they had saved on my phone, random times when my phone wasn't being in use at all. And like just me talking to my wife, talking to my kids, or you can't literally like once I'm singing Iron Maiden in my car.
Where'd you go? What kind of phone do you have?
This was when I had an Android, and you could still look it up if you have an Android. As a matter of fact, I think they just reposted the article in their flashback file thing a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's scary, man. And the thing is, I felt like I was ahead of this because I'm always like I'm addicted to my phone. So I know when I would have a conversation between anybody with anything, just talk about, and it just pop up my phone, just like, dude, talk about Pop-Tarts for like 10 minutes, and I guarantee you in the next half hour there'll be an ad for Pop-Tarts on your phone.
Dude, I hope so. I love Pop-Tarts.
Do you
especially the s'mores?
Oh, s'mores my favorite, dude.
Dude, hell yeah.
Do you have like a screen time tracker?
Yeah.
Phil?
It's on my iPhone. It sends me. It's like your ass has been staring at your phone too long.
They have that built into the Androids now.
Oh yeah, it's on my iPhone too. I mean, it's like so my average, I think, is like 9 hours a week on Facebook, which is pretty heavy, I think.
9 hours a week?
Yeah. Yeah,
Facebook?
that's my most used. That's
Think
my
about
most.
staring at your phone for 9 straight
FaceTime.
hours.
Yeah, over the course of a
week. But like that's
yeah. My average per day is like 1.5 to 2 hours of screen time, which is way too high. And then I think YouTube is like my second most used app, and that's only like an hour. So Facebook is by far my most used.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make like a resolution to, because when I see that your weekly report and seeing like, Jesus, I spent how much? Like I could be doing like what else could I be doing more productive than? I mean, I love the dank memes, but it's like shit. I could have done many of other things more productive. Being in the moment.
Yeah,
too. That's another
I had
thing
to
too, working on being in the moment.
Yeah, I had to put a blocker on my work computer actually because I would instinctually just type in Facebook. Like I would just start typing it into the URL bar, and just go to Facebook and get lost for like 10 minutes. So I had to block it.
You had to block. Oh wow, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was voluntarily. It wasn't like
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want with my work computer. Well, I mean, I probably shouldn't do anything I want with it, but
it kind of goes back to what Matt was talking about, and like how everything's becoming so digital and how we're like relying on things so much. And this might be it might it's on topic, like how we're just becoming like so reliant on digital technology, how we're relying on our phones, how we're like spending so much time, like how we've just become dependent on this technology. So I was listening to this podcast last week, and it was Graham Hancock. You guys ever hear of him?
Yep.
It's a fucking interesting dude.
Yeah.
But his whole theory is like the ancient, like that there was highly advanced ancient civilizations, but like our modern day and
well, they got wiped out.
They got wiped out, like some
cataclysmic
event. And that's why, like, so he has these explanations of the pyramids, of like all these like kind of anomalies, kind of like how the fuck were these built back then? But the whole
pyramids
theory,
are the most interesting thing. Yeah, really.
But the whole theory,
they don't even know what the fuck it is or what it does.
Well, yeah, but his whole, I like his theory where he's discussing like, well, how the fuck does advanced civilization? He's like, well, think about it now. It was on Rogan. He's like, think about it now, right? So in 50 years from now, we're completely dependent on like, oh, my wash machine has an app. Let me start the wash machine, or everything's like, we're so reliant on like, oh, let me use the GPS to go everywhere and not rely on using maps and using your instincts. So if there's like an event that wipes us out, you're going to have a bunch of dumb fucks that have no concept of how to survive. So naturally, the few of us that are going to like survive, that have this technology, are going to want to like seek out the hunter gatherers that are like had no access to these technologies. And that's why he thinks like that there was like lost like thousands of years, because like at one point these advanced civilizations were so were so far advanced, but something wiped them out. And then that's why we're kind of, and it's kind of scary because you think about it like in today's in today's times, it's like, because he was talking about, he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I'm guilty myself. He's like, I used to be able to read a map. I mean, he's in his 70s, but he's like, I used to read a map all the time, like road atlas. He's like, I'm just on GPS now. He's like, I could barely even read a map. It's like how we lose like basic skills because of all this technology. And it's like, but anyways, I don't know. It's kind of had to do with like just our dependency on this technology.
I think society comes in waves. It'll be like there's like a new high water mark where, the Roman Empire or whatever, they create these great civilizations, and then it recedes, and then there's a few years where, we kind of trudge along a little bit, and then civilization comes back. And so I just think you can look at different empires rise and fall. There's always like a cycle, and it comes up and it goes back, and comes up and it goes back. Right now I think the United States is doing well over the last 200 years, right? Is probably the largest empire, if you want to call it that. Or
this is the fall of Rome, but with Wi-Fi now.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that we've been on an ascent for a long time, and maybe we have a descent coming. I don't know. I think with capitalism, I think a lot of people don't appreciate that capitalism is feeding a population of 330 million people. Right, and as we go toward more government providing more and more things, and you see the division, and with protectionism too, people trying to shrink the market and put up walls and restrict trade, you could see a decline in the standard of living and a decline in people's wealth. It's possible,
for sure.
Just from an economic ideological standpoint, that we lose what we've figured out, which is how the market enables us to support a population this large.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not. Some people figured it out.
Well,
but not everybody.
Yeah. Right, but
like if everybody knew that, they just forgot.
Take Venezuela, right? I mean, you had a country that was very prosperous, that had no problems with food. They had the grocery stores were stocked. They had plenty of plenty of wealth. It was a very prosperous country at one point, and last I heard, they're like eating dogs. I mean,
that wasn't necessarily on account of capitalism, though, that they were prosperous. It's not like they had. I mean, they just had a lot of oil.
Yeah,
and then
which they sold.
Yeah.
On the global market,
right?
But I think I do think it was partially on the account of capitalism. I remember reading stories from 8 and 10 years ago where the government was allowing people to raid businesses, just go in and loot. They were looting warehouses, they were looting businesses, and I'm sure people were like, "Hey, it's not safe to do business here, so we're packing it up."
Yeah.
And either they packed it up and left the country, or they just said, "Hey, we're just shutting down." This is an anti-business climate, and I remember seeing a meme with like a store owner, and he was like, "This was me 10 years ago," and he has a picture, and his shelves are full, and that's the same picture of him, and he's older, and he has like 3 products left
Right.
on the shelf.
Well, we know socialism is doomed to fail. But another thing, though, bringing back to this Venezuelan topic of the failed coup that happened on Monday. I feel like lately, I don't know, I haven't been sharing a lot. Venezuela's been the butt of like a lot of my jokes going back for a few years now. But I feel like
Edgy, dude.
But shit, what was I saying? Oh yeah, but I felt like lately, I feel like I'm just kind of spreading CIA propaganda. I've never seen so many. I don't know. It's weird. I've kind of had like this weird like revelation where I feel like this might be the bidding of people like Elliot Abrams and John Bolton and these criminals in power who want to go into Venezuela and take the oil.
Like the rebels in Libya.
Yeah,
to oust Gaddafi, we need to foment.
And I've really, because I've ever since it's like in January when they tried to nominate, they literally said, Guaido, you're the president, even though he didn't run for office. His party hasn't run for years or several election cycles, and they just said you're the new president. And this dude has just been trying to become the president.
So this is reeking of like the Arab Spring.
Yeah, and then I'm seeing like these videos of, like these people like literally they're dive like it's just. Have you guys seen the movie Heavyweights? The old Disney movie Heavyweights?
Mm-mm.
Okay, but real quick, there's a scene in the movie where they're at this camp, and it's a fat camp, and so it gets taken over by new owners. They try to get everyone to like buy into this it's called the Perkis system, and he ends up like getting crazy, and like Ben Stiller plays this guy Perkis, and like he tries to like abuse these kids into like losing weight and like starving them. And so they go ahead and they film their own video of it. And so they're showing behind the scenes of him like yelling and like verbally abusing these kids. But they said like, so in one scene that they recorded it, they put together this piece where they're eating like a fake rat. And so the guy turns to them, he's like, we decided to spice it up a little bit. I feel like that's what a lot of these videos are coming back. It's coming back to the issue.
You don't think
of, like,
they
Venezuela.
actually ran over people?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the ones where these people are eating out of garbage cans. And just like, why is there cameras just randomly watching like
So
people holding up the phone? Like, yeah, I think that's to spice it up a little bit. I
don't know. I mean,
man.
I think we can have a more nuanced approach to this where we don't necessarily, we definitely don't support any sort of U.S. intervention or, fake coup support, uprising support. But that doesn't mean that socialism isn't bad and that it isn't creating.
Of course, that's why I said that's why I said like I know it's doomed to fail, but then we're putting sanctions on it, and then we're trying to install this fake coup.
No, we don't need to be helping anything along. We don't need to be, especially because I mean, what's this guy going to do? Like institute like free market capitalism? No, it's just going to be more socialism,
pretty much,
more statism.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it, and I felt like more and more lately, like. Oh wow! I'm hearing Marco Rubio. I never really want to be on the same side as Marco Rubio or John Bolton, and it's like I'm on the same side. So I'm kind of like thinking, like trying to just kind of take a look around and reevaluate my position on it. And I'm all for
Well, look what this administration just did with Cuba. We can't travel to Cuba anymore.
I know.
Just when like things were opening up, and just when Cuba, you know what I mean? Like, oh, cool. Like more Americans are gonna come here, spend money. Maybe in a couple years, like. More and more Cubans will be like, enough of this communism.
I didn't hear that they put the Cuba ban back.
On? And it was good old
Trump.
That's
Bolton.
just
yeah,
not
Michael Bolton, but mustache, the evil villain looking motherfucker, neocon. Yeah, he made the announcement that they're going to
reinstate the embargo.
So no longer
sanctions are back on, man.
Okay, so did they give like a specific reason why? Why?
Right.
Basically, just because they think, because they're socialists or just to punish the communist regime. And Rubio was Marco Rubio was like, this is great. I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, that was about three
no way,
weeks ago.
like little Marco was for it.
Oh yeah, like all these neocons are all for it. Yeah, and he's, but just when you think like, all right, the door might be opening up, but they shut it down. Just like that. So you think a lot with what's going on in Venezuela is the same thing. We're probably heavily involved, the CIA involved in a lot of the shenanigans that are going on there. We all know socialism is going to fail, but at the same token, do we really need to speed it up or to do we need to speed that process up, or do we, and then also make the misery even worse for those people?
What prevent it from? I mean, ideally, you know, we would like to think that if something fails, people would, and it fails on its own accord, that people would, you know, be like, try something new, right?
Yeah.
But if it's, you know, if they can sort of, because here's what you see a lot of the socialists or like the democratic socialists saying is like, oh, it's not socialism that failed, it's U.S. intervention that caused them to fail through these
Stop
sanctions.
giving them excuses.
Now,
yeah, exactly. Now we're giving them excuses.
Now they're not correct about that. I mean, did the U.S. putting sanctions hurt them? For sure, but they were already on the way down before that even happened. Doesn't matter though, because they can point to that and, you know, just rationalize it all away, like, oh, this wasn't due to socialism, this was due to, or dependency on oil or some other factor. And so the more that the U.S. intervenes and props up, you know, these or somewhat unpopular people as you know, the new leader, the less you're going to have, you know, the people themselves decide to have some level of self-determination and hopefully pick something that's not more socialism.
Yeah. It was interesting. There was a guy from Venezuela that spoke at it was either a Students for Liberty or Yale conference in University of Maryland, and I went for whatever reason. It's mostly students and me. I'm, you know, obviously in my late 30s, but it was anyway. It was an interesting talk. The guy I remember was very angry or agitated about. He was a supporter of democracy, but he was like, the elections aren't fair.
Was he in Venezuela? Or was he?
Yeah,
from Venezuela?
He was from Venezuela, and he was just like, look, all we ask for is just like fair elections. He said, you know, the results are not the true results.
I doubt it's
and I'm
fair
like,
in that sense.
yeah, it's probably not, but you know, you do kind of need a popular uprising. If you're not going to get a fair democratic election, you need people in the streets banging pots and stuff like that in order to kind of make people make the leadership quit. And that has worked in some places. That's worked in some countries where the country just shuts down. They're like, look, you know, we no longer have respect for you as a leader, and they take it to the streets, and you don't even necessarily need to break glass and burn cars. Like, you just, you know, it's just every day you're out in the streets protesting. Like, get out of office. You're not welcome anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, so there's always that option if voting fails to work.
Right.
Yeah, but you see these videos of like the armored personnel carriers, whatever, like driving over a crowd of people, and it's terrible, it's awful. But at the same time, like, those people weren't just like protesters; like, they were throwing Molotov cocktails, and they were like,
so they were rioters.
They were rioting.
Yeah.
And as much as that's still not an appropriate response to people throwing Molotov cocktails. You're in a secure vehicle that's under no real threat. You're still running over your own citizens. Like, it's fucked up. But I think, like, I really shouldn't be having this hard stance being like, see, like, being libertarian has been sharing a lot of this stuff. Like, so this is why this is why gun control fails. And, you know, this is why you need gun rights. And this is a fault of socialism. I'm like, well, yeah, you're right. But also doesn't need Americans having influence of putting certain politicians in power who don't have any reasonable right to be ruling. You know, I think that these people were pushing, like in the government, like John Bolton, Pence, all these people were pushing to have Guaido,
regime change,
Guaido to rise up, and there's regime change. And I mean, once again, we're influencing an election, we're pissing people off, and everyone knows it's the United States. And I think now the reason why it's not working, because this whole thing started on Monday. Guaido got on TV and posted a video on the internet with a bunch of like soldiers around him saying, "This is right now. Everyone start right now. If you're part of the military right now, rise up against Maduro." And, you know, we're going through it, and they stormed some type of building or what, I don't know. It seemed at the time like this was it. This was the start of it. And then by mid-morning, the video came out of the armored personnel carrier, like, running over the group of people. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And essentially, the guy who was Guaido's, what's his name? It's like Maldonado or something like that. I forget his name. But he was actually ran into another embassy for sanctuary, essentially, because he was afraid of getting arrested again because it failed, essentially.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do an armed coup. Hitler actually tried it. in the beer hall putsch.
Yep.
And he went to jail for 5 years. He could have gotten life in prison for being a traitor against the country. Like the government just they don't play that. Everybody thinks like, oh well, we have our guns and we're gonna take it over and everything. And you just can't imagine how much force they have once you add up the police and the National Guard and the military.
Yeah, but there are times where
and they're already connected to the government, right? It's in their interest to sustain their current situation, right? Unless it's really bad for them. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen successful military coups where a general or somebody like that, took over the military and then was able to oust the civilian leader because then he has the force behind him.
Yeah.
But you very rarely see a successful civilian-led revolution, and like the American Revolution. The state governments were behind that. They were organized behind it, and the United States actually seceded, and so they actually were able to organize a military resistance against the English. It wasn't necessarily just random Joe Blows who grabbed their guns.
It wasn't Che Guevara.
Yeah, it wasn't a Che Guevara. It wasn't Che Guevara exactly.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of libertarians need to recognize that it's just not the violent route is not a smart route. And I don't know that any libertarians are really calling for that other than really none of them now.
No.
Augustus,
look at
Augustus Invictus, when he was a candidate, that was his thing. He was like, we need to, cut off the head of the crown. And I remember he was advocating for like killing. He said like death to Barack Obama and death to Hillary. And
we know why. We know why now.
He was extremely radical, and I remember being like, whoa, this is not a guy we want to affiliate ourselves with. And that was before he went and became a leader in the alt-right movement. I was like, this guy's crazy.
Right, and I mean, there's a difference between, the advocation of arming oneself to defend against a tyrannical government,
or when there's no government, like our rooftop Korean friends. That was like
sure, yeah.
That just like that
Make
was the
rooftops
25th.
speak Korean again.
But my point is that's different than saying let's all get arms and then unite together and attack the government.
No,
Yeah, 'cause
that's just not going to work.
There's times where
No.
it works,
But it definitely is a good idea to be armed in the event that something
like
crazy
those
goes down.
those BML or the BLM protests where Clive and Bundy out in Nevada.
Oh yeah,
Like that pretty much like was like, all right, this could get ugly.
yeah.
Same thing, but that was one time where having armed citizenry, basically kept the state at bay, and they there wasn't.
They
any,
were eventually crushed though.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah,
And then the
I'm
other
just saying
thing
like
too,
a radical
like I just saw this documentary on a couple weeks ago, and I vaguely remember it. I mean, I was pretty young at the time, but I watched the Ruby Ridge, the PBS documentary on Ruby Ridge, and Jesus Christ, like
Dude,
how quickly that fucking escalated. That the FBI and all the bureaucracies came in and were just like basically shoot to kill. Like take this guy out, and that was insane. Where his wife was murdered, his son and wife.
While
But
holding
that still goes towards Kyle's
Yeah.
point, though.
Yeah, they could have done that to the Clive and Bundy as well, just
Yeah.
because those
Yeah.
guys had shotguns and weapons and all. I mean, they
Right.
could have rolled in some tanks and taken
Right.
them all out. But it becomes a political situation
Right.
where the government really doesn't want to massacre all these people.
And that was so
they have the full capacity to do so.
That was
Sure.
so
Right.
funny when liberals were calling for the government to go in there and storm them. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and you call it
like
you
in
want
Waco,
the
especially like in Waco.
Waco, but like with the Clive and Bundy when they like stormed that like conservatory, like
Oh,
that
yeah,
but they
yeah,
forgot the snacks. Like,
Oh, yeah.
remember that? Like all those great snack memes. But yeah, like
what was their name for them? What was their? It was the Al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda.
That was kind of funny.
I mean, but I think because of the Wacos and the Ruby Ridges, and then the fact that with the stance in Nevada with the BLM, the stance of armed citizenry against the whoever they were, the BLM, they realized like, they're armed. We don't want to escalate it too much, and then they just were like, these idiots forgot their snacks. We'll just wait. We'll just hold out here, and eventually they'll, succumb.
Yeah.
Well, they got the one guy was murdered.
Yeah,
I think they
executed him.
Yeah. I mean, that was insane.
You see the
But
video
exactly,
of it.
like that's the violence of the state. The state's going to bring the violence at some point. And
Right.
Like going back.
My
to
point
what
is
Kyle's
just
saying, like
you don't want to be the aggressor per se.
Again, yeah.
Like it's
exactly.
one thing to be waiting, ready to defend yourself if there is some sort of like, crazy like Hitler guy, actual Hitler,
Insurrection, but,
comes at power and it's like, all right, well, we got to do some guerrilla warfare and defend ourselves or something. But
Wolverines.
But yeah,
but like in the society in which we live right now, it behooves us more to use our words and our ability to spread ideas non-violently and agorism and things like that, all the different avenues that we have available, and not turn to violence immediately.
yeah, because the state is the one that brings the violence. I mean, it's
They're
always
gonna bring
the
the
state.
fucking ruckus.
It is, and in this situation, like in this state, like maybe there is some hypothetical state where it doesn't happen, but it's always they're the ones who shoot first, or they're always ones who come around looking for a fight. I mean,
Escalate that.
they escalate it, and
Yeah.
like you see how many videos you see of cops where they just walk up on somebody who's just standing in their yard and antagonize him to the point where like, oh well, we arrested him for resisting arrest after they show a video of him like kicking this dude in the face 7 times while he has his hands behind his
Why
back.
you guys always make me defend the state? I mean, a lot of times they are not the instigators. A lot of times the private citizen is doing something they really shouldn't be doing, and the cops end up showing up because somebody called them and said this guy's beating the shit out of his brother with a chair or whatever it is.
But
like
they usually
a lot of times they
Okay,
get called to confront a violent situation that's
Kyle.
already in progress.
Kylie, pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So did you know, Kyle, that you can be arrested and they can arrest you for the only reason of resisting arrest? That can be the only reason.
Yeah, that seems like a contradiction there, a paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, how am I getting? Yeah. No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought that they would have had some initial reason to
Yeah,
initiate the
you
arrest.
would think it would be intuitive that, you would just think in a place where you're supposed to be free and shit.
Does that mean
that-
you're able to be arrested for just simply nothing?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's basically, cops can pick on you and then, like you're resisting, but what are you resisting? What are you arresting me for?
Yeah, I don't know if they need a reason or not.
They usually they don't de-escalate situations.
Well,
They
chances are if you have a good lawyer, that shit's going to get thrown out. But even then though, it's still going to be a headache, of course.
Yeah, 'cause
and
you
then
gotta
if you
hire
don't
a
have
lawyer,
if you
you
don't have the
gotta go
money
through
for a
the
decent
bullshit.
lawyer, that's when you get really fucked.
Oh, before I forget, so I don't know if you saw this, but there was a thread on one of your meme pages, Kyle.
Oh, really?
And actually, so somebody had heard about the whole. Actually, it was the guy. Remember the whole FBI thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
So that guy thought you had called the FBI on him.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I jumped in. I was like, no, that's not what happened at all, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, you said something kind of borderline crazy.
Yeah, it was Jeff Wood.
Yeah, it was him.
And
For those just tuning in, give the rundown, Kyle.
Arvin, it was about it was a Second Amendment, are guns okay to use in violent revolution kind of thread. And Jeff Wood commented under Arvin's post that he expected to shoot police and law enforcement sometime in his lifetime.
Right.
And I heard from someone else
sometime, possibly within my lifetime, hypothetically.
And this was right after those high profile cop killings.
Oh, the in Texas,
Yeah.
Houston, and
So
it was like FBI, they're on high alert, listening to everything.
So somebody apparently reported it or tagged the FBI or something.
Yes, and I had heard that it was somebody in Michigan where Jeff Woods lives.
Oh yeah.
That reported it to the Michigan police,
yeah,
and
but
then they reported it to the FBI.
Kyle. Okay, is that really that much of a radical thing to say though? In a day and age where you have red flag laws, right? Where you can just get into a disagreement with somebody, your fucking nephew
through eBay
or Alex's status friend. Just
it's certainly not an intelligent thing to say on Facebook.
No.
Well, but at the same time, it's maybe it is. Maybe it's realistic.
Yeah, if you want the FBI to show up at your house.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying.
They apparently took it as a credible enough threat.
In an age where you can have cops come to your house and rob you of your guns, which are your Second Amendment right, without any due process.
Right.
I mean, is that not justifiable to, protect yourself and your property from thieves?
I mean, you can make an argument for it if you want. I don't. Again, it's not a smart idea. If somebody comes to confiscate your guns and you try to shoot them, they're going to shoot back and you're going to die. So that, I mean, I don't really understand why you would do that. I mean, I would give them my guns.
Okay, I'm not saying
because I don't want to die.
Yeah,
I mean,
no doubt,
you don't want to go out in a blaze of glory.
I don't want to go out in a blaze of glory.
No doubt, but what I'm saying is, if things are just and laws are truly just, and we have any sort of justice in this country, if somebody is trying to rob you of your Second Amendment right, and you're just protecting that, I mean, that is your right to protect that.
I don't think so. I mean, it's
you don't think it is legally?
I mean, they already have like so many. They've trampled all over the Second Amendment. I just saw there's a guy that has a felony gun possession charge in New York, and I'm how is a gun possession?
Kyle.
How is that a criminal charge? But in New York, it is.
Kyle, I'm not talking about what they're doing. I'm talking about is it not your right to defend your right?
I don't think so. No. I mean, legally, it's not going to hold us. So let's use the word legal right.
I don't think
you're not going to win in court. You're going to go down as a cop killer if you shoot the cop, or you're going to be dead if they shoot you,
especially
which is more likely.
Don't have castle doctrine,
and no one is going to care. So I mean,
no, it's not. No one is going to care. All
right, some people are going to care, but a lot of the population is not going to side with you. Okay, I mean, Kyle, you're going to lose the legal case. I mean. Are you going to have the moral high ground? Maybe, but it's not going to help you much because you're going to be dead. What is your point?
You're dead.
Well, dude, I don't really think it's such a hopeless battle, and I think if you keep talking like that, you're making it like a hopeless battle. If you have that sort of mindset, and I also think probably roughly about half the country believes in the Second Amendment.
Yeah, but it's not set in stone. It's not written in stone.
There are cases where cops have been shot going into homes, but because of the castle doctrine, the individual, like homeowner or the person owning the property, is let off.
And how many states have red flag laws now?
Well, Maryland being one. Maryland doesn't have castle doctrine, and they also have. They just passed red flag laws like last year, and that the person in around the county was killed. They came out to his home.
Right. But I'm saying I think the more states that do this, eventually it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and I think we might see something interesting.
Yeah, I think. Well, as more red flag laws, and if there's more violence and more, where police are showing up based on your boy who posted that ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's something you probably shouldn't say on Facebook.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's like
does he make a good point about
yes,
potentially about like red flag laws and the encroaching regulation and interference with the Second Amendment? Yeah, but at the same time, it's like. But my whole thing was apparently he was under the impression that it was you who made the call.
Yeah, that
you're a snitch.
And I jumped in. I was like, nah, that's not at all what happened.
Well, thanks for coming to my defense. Yeah, it was not me. I definitely did not report the comment or anything like that.
It was like because you were in the comment. You were in the comments or replying, and then I guess they were like, "Well, hey, go." The FBI,
it was under my comment that he had replied to my comment.
You said something along the lines of. Like basically what you're saying now, which is like armed revolution is not really a good idea.
Yes, that's right.
And then
and this guy was like, well, I fully intend to kill cops at some time in my life.
Yes.
And then I actually was on the thread too, and I sort of responded to, I think in agreement with what you were saying. I said, basically what I'm saying here. It's basically this conversation. Mm-hmm. Plus, like, if you were all of a sudden, if Alex was suddenly like, I want to kill some cops now.
Right.
That's kind of what it was like.
And I was built like.
And then he messaged me like the next day. He's like, dude, the FBI just showed up at my house.
Literally
running around my house, like, hiding any sort of contraband that I don't want.
I open my door. I got my doorbell rings. I open it. There's two guys, like, from the Baltimore field office of the FBI. Ringing my doorbell, and I'm like,
but wait,
can I help you? Like,
you did invite them in for coffee, did you not?
Yeah. Could I?
Yeah, I not for coffee, but like, I was like, well, what I wanted to know what it was about.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, I have my Facebook group, and obviously all kinds of weird shit is discussed in there. People talking about whether pedophilia should be legal in a libertarian society and stuff like that. And so I'm like, this could really literally be about anything. I had no idea.
It was really just curiosity.
Yeah. And then
so you
they
invited him in. They sat down at your kitchen table. You brought him a hot cup of Joe.
I didn't give him drinks or anything. It was literally like,
hey guys,
a 5-minute conversation where I was like, I don't know who the guy is. I don't know what his intentions are. I know nothing about this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't help you. Have a nice day. That it was a very short conversation, but yeah.
Good thing you didn't have any dogs running around though.
It was,
I know.
Dead. Your cat's still good?
The cat was fine.
yeah.
But no, I
survived this encounter.
It was super weird to have people come to my house over a Facebook conversation.
It's weird. It's like when online reality comes out into your real life, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. And it was incredibly stupid.
I'm surprised this hasn't happened
say.
more often amongst a lot of us.
I would hope that I'm sure, I guess he blames me, but it's like, dude, I didn't contact anybody. I had nothing to do with this. Somebody reported your comment, and it got passed up the ladder. Yeah. And then they probably interviewed everybody in his entire social circle.
God, people are such bitches,
dude. Yes, people are bitches, but also don't be an idiot and save us all the
I know, but it's just
trouble.
Know the context. Someone just wanted revenge. This is kind of
they're
swatting.
Reported,
they're trying to swat him.
Yeah, whoever reported is clearly a worthless snitch. But
Kyle, more on this conversation because I think it's a little spicy. It's spicy mayonnaise, wouldn't you say?
It is. Yeah.
It's a spicy
so
meatball.
okay, so what if say you go to church, Kyle?
Mm-hmm.
And what if the government goes to your church and tells everybody they have to leave, and they break it up, and they say you no longer have a right to be here? At what point do you have the right to use force against the government? I mean, I would just think that if you have these rights, with the moment that they infringe them, you would have the right to defend them.
I mean, I guess it's the right according to who? You know what I mean? I mean, you have to think. When this conflict is settled or heard, is it going to be heard in court? Because that's where these kind of disputes end up. They end up in a court.
Well, I mean
it doesn't matter what God or whoever you think is going to judge the situation of what happened.
So, I mean, do you think we should just
right?
throw away the Constitution because we don't have any of these rights?
No, I mean, I think it's good that we have them laid out in the Constitution.
Fourth Amendment,
and that's actually helped
right there.
That's actually helped a lot of people that have been in legal trouble, as they can appeal to the Constitution, and they've gotten off on that. So, but it's the word of man. I mean, it's a man-made law, and so we've been able to use it to limit the government in some instances, which is good. But I mean, I guess if you're asking, would I support your decision morally if the government broke up your church and you came back with an AK or an AR and shot the police that broke them up, or would you just resist right then and there? No, the police came in and said, you guys have to disperse, and you shot a police officer.
I would say you reconvene the same time, next week, whatever, and you bring a bunch of dudes with guns sitting outside the church and said, any cop that tries to come and break this up, you're going to have to answer to us. Just stand there. Just stand there with your guns, and I guarantee you the police will shoot first.
Yeah, they very well might. And I mean...
like I said, because the state always brings the force.
So if I was the judge of that case... I mean, let's say you killed the cop.
And so if you were the judge, would you abide by the Constitution?
That's a good question.
Why is it a good question? When you're a judge, don't you take oaths to abide by the Constitution? I mean,
but the fact that you have freedom of religion doesn't give you the freedom to shoot a cop.
Well, if they're denying you of your freedom,
well, then you have to appeal it through the proper channels. You have to you have to sue in court and say they broke up our church and we have freedom of religion and the cops were wrong and they owe us restitution. You're not allowed to just shoot them for doing what they think is their jobs.
Well, why do we have the Second Amendment, Kyle?
It's to, I think it's what is the actual language of it? It's to
hunt deer.
Hunt deer, yes.
It's for deer hunting, Matt. No, it's something about having a militia to being necessary for the security of.
No. Keep going.
Why don't you have the text up in front of you?
I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, I think that the most important thing about it is it's only a couple sentences long, but the final sentence, the right of the people. What did you say? It's 2 sentences.
I'm pretty sure it's 2 sentences.
Yeah, that would be a couple, dude.
Yeah, I think both sentences are important.
No, but okay.
Maybe
let
in
me
your
get to
world,
the.
bro.
Well, I mean, the end of it.
Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yes,
So it's not even
So
2 sentences. It's a comma. All
so
right.
it's for the security of the state. There you go.
It's dude.
No. The right.
That's what it says.
The right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
The right of the people to keep and
Being
bear
necessary
For the security of a free state. So we can take out of a free because
Here we go.
that's
Okay.
just
no. So you're doing this. Okay,
it's-
so follow the sentence. Follow the sentence. Keep going.
yeah. For the security of a state, or we'll say
Of a
the
free state.
Of a
Yeah,
free state.
free
Keep
state.
going.
Yep. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Kyle, why do you?
Right.
Kyle, why do you
so
try to
who's
leave
not
out
making a free
important
state?
words like
the
free?
police. They're the ones who are not making a free state. If they're coming to say, well, someone said that might be crazy, so we're going to come here with guns drawn and take your guns. Or, hey, we don't like what you've been saying on the internet. We're going to come away and take away your guns and take you away. Or, oh, hey.
You've had a little too much to think.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think people have misinterpreted it to believe that it means that you have the right to bear arms so that you can shoot the cops.
Or what if
And
they,
I don't
they
think
came to your
that's
house
true.
and they were like, "You've been hanging out with that Jewish guy, Schneiderman."
Whoa.
Yeah,
Like, what if they did that?
I would say yes. And
No. Okay. What do you think? What happened at Lexington Concord? What do you think that was about?
Founding fathers quotes probably, and
Yeah,
it's
and
George
you know
Washington. Me and my homies would be stacking bodies by now.
No, Lexington Concord. The British had a word that the rebels were stockpiling weapons, and I think Concord, and they got met in Lexington when the rebels said, fuck that, you're not coming to take our stockpile, and they
First
shot
shots
him up.
fired in Concord. Yep.
And they shot him up. That's what the whole thing was about, man. The whole thing. This was in 1775.
no, it wasn't
That
all
doesn't-
about the right to bear arms. It was an
It was the
entire
state-
secession from the kingdom of England, England.
I know. But in order to preserve those rights of being free, you have to be able to keep and bear arms so that no state can get big enough to tell you what you can or cannot do. And it's not a matter of saying, oh, well, we need guns to kill government agents. It's we need guns to defend ourselves from anyone trying to trample our liberties.
That what you're ultimately talking about, though, is government agents trampling.
So then
your
that's you
liberties.
admitting right there that the government is violating people's rights.
I mean, I'm just saying that's
But
exactly.
you're admitting to it right there.
Oh shit! Wow, we just disproved minarchy.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
No,
Kyle
no.
just got the beat down, dude.
It's not. It's you totally misunderstood what I was saying.
No, I get what you're saying, man. I know where you're coming from. I know you don't like the verbiage of it all. I know it's.
I mean, if your rationale is that you should have a gun so that you should shoot cops, then I would say you shouldn't have guns, right? Like, that's
No.
not a good reason for you to have guns. You have guns so you can
it's
protect
anyone.
your house.
It's anyone who's come. Yes.
No,
and
if
you need to
your
protect your house
rationale
from
is so you can
police,
shoot the government, that's
mafia,
actually a
Anybody
case
infringing on my
for
life,
the
liberty,
gun.
and property.
But think about
Well-
it. The first police force wasn't found until the 1830s. There was no police force. They were just like random sheriffs.
It was a well-regulated
I mean,
militia.
sheriffs are kind of a police force, especially if they have deputies and everything. I mean, you make the case that is a police force.
okay.
Is it not a police department as
But
we
do
know
you-
it today, but
But what they described, what was going on,
certainly a lawman.
but what was going on in colonial America was the fact that why do you think they had the Fourth Amendment? Because they were having soldiers saying, you know what, you have an empty room. We're going to have 2 of our soldiers. You're going to feed them. You're going to clothe them. You're going to make sure that their beds are nice and kept, and they're going to stay
That's
in
the
your house.
one. That's probably the one Bill of Rights that hasn't been trampled on.
What?
The quarter.
Quarters. Like,
Having
but
to
give
give
it time
quarter.
though.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I think
bootlickers
well, that's
now would
because
just like,
there's-
oh sure, come on in.
But that's because
police
we don't
officer,
fight
here,
wars.
I have an extra room.
Alex, that's only because we don't fight wars on our own soil. If we did, we probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have to do that shit.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Like
well,
if you had if there was like a battlefield over like across the street, You're damn well right. They would make.
Oh
us
fuck
Twitter
yeah! They
fucking
would like
soldiers.
these
But
thin
think-
blue liners would like. Oh sure, come on
That's
in,
just been
come on in my
violated-
house.
But think about it. That's just been
I'll make
violated.
you a hot cup of coffee there, FBI officers.
I mean, I guess.
Hey, Kyle. Okay, let's just throw your nationalism out the window for a second,
All right.
and then think back to like Nazi Germany, right?
Right.
So if Nazis were like running around confiscating Jews, do you think the Jews would have had a right to defend themselves with firearms against Nazis?
Well, that's a great question.
It is. Answer.
Stop saying that. Answer the question. Stop saying it's great. Answer with a great response. They're Nazis, Kyle. Anyone?
Hold on, let him.
I'm thinking about it.
I mean,
I guess.
it just seems to
I
me.
guess.
It just seems to me like it's an.
Oh, he said I
it's
guess.
like
guess.
It's an
I mean,
obvious. It's an
dude,
obvious human
Right.
right.
I mean, they were rounding them up for execution.
Cop loves cop killers.
and
That's one of the most obvious examples of evil government in history, right? They were committing a genocide. So what are your options there? To surrender peacefully and be bussed into a camp and gassed to death, or to shoot back?
But that might not have necessarily been known at that point.
Yeah, I would think that a revolution was probably called for. A violent resistance was certainly justifiable.
probably
there.
called for.
Yeah, I think
how,
it was,
how many million deaths equals probably called for?
All right, I think it was called for. All right.
Well, would you say that the Jew being abducted by the Nazis had like a natural right to not being kidnapped?
I wouldn't use that language. I wouldn't say a natural right.
But why not?
Kyle does not
though?
believe in rights. I'm
I mean-
serious, Kyle. You don't really believe in rights, right?
I only
and
use the word in terms of like a
it's
legal sense.
well,
Like you
well,
have,
right, but you don't.
I don't
believe
usually
it-
use it in a.
You
I
don't
like
believe it in any sort of philosophical. Or,
Well, I do like the moral right, like a legal right or a moral right. You can make that distinction.
Okay, then-
and
okay, well,
use the term moral
so
right
moral
kind of
right.
interchangeable.
Does somebody have the moral right to self-defense?
It really depends on the situation.
Then that's not morality. Morality is universal. Is a
All right.
universal.
So
ethic.
let's say let's say it's a serial killer and he's going to be arrested in his home, and you say, well, he has a right to self-defense. Well, no. I mean, he deserves to be arrested and put in jail for the crimes that he's committed. So not everyone has a moral right to shoot police.
Yeah, but one could argue that it's not self-defense if he's
It is
already
still-
initiated the violence.
No, it's still self-defense. I mean, he's just sitting in his
It's
house.
not okay. It's not justified self-defense.
Right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not justified, and it's not a moral right. And so that's
Sure.
where I was kind of saying, yeah,
But if you're-
it really
if you're an
depends
innocent-
on the situation.
If you're an innocent person living in a society under a government, and the government, for unprovoked, without you violating any sort of legitimate moral law, I would say, and they just start coming and harassing you and attacking you, then I would say, wouldn't you say like you have the right to defend yourself? I mean, it might not be. Now that's a different question. Then is it pragmatically speaking the right thing for you to do without first maybe organizing with a bunch of other people or having some sort of plan or some sort of escape plan or something? But
yeah,
that's a different question than is it like morally righteous of you to shoot police or army men or whatever in that scenario.
Well, that's why I said like it really depends on the specifics of the scenario, and because when government's involved, like you have to continue to carry that to its logical conclusion. You kill one of them, they send 2, they send 3, they send 4. I mean, they send more and more, and it escalates. Eventually, it's a full-scale revolution.
Then you got 5 stars.
Or either you're dead, or it turns into a revolution, or a civil war, right? If your side starts to prevail, it's not like they're gonna.
That was a GTA reference.
It's not like you're gonna kill one cop and that's gonna be the end of the incident, right? There's
No.
gonna be another cop behind
Yeah,
him.
well, that's what I'm
there's
saying.
gonna be a manhunt for you.
That's what I'm saying. Pragmatically speaking, yeah, it's probably not the best idea. Depending on the situation. I mean, if it's a armed revolt, in an area or something where there's a government force where you could legitimately put them down or at least push them back and get them to like back off, then yeah, it makes pragmatic sense to do that. If it's just you alone in the woods and you're interested in surviving the next year, then it's probably not a good idea.
Just you and your auto blower.
I think Larkin Rose actually wrote an article called "When It's Okay to Shoot a Cop" or something of that. Yeah. I remember that, and
he's basically saying what I'm saying though. It's morally speaking justified to defend yourself, but pragmatically speaking, probably not a good idea.
All right, I'll say in very rare circumstances is it even morally justified. Usually, you should just submit to arrest and get it settled in court.
Going back to Ruby Ridge, that could have escalated even worse. But the Weaver family, I mean, there was the Weaver family and the Harris family brought civil suits against the government over the events, and they were awarded. This was 1995, so it was like 3 years after. It was an out of court settlement. She $3.1 million.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah. And I think that case, when I remember watching the documentary, it was like the longest. Like it went to a jury trial, and the jury, but what are the chances of a jury actually being in favor of the defendant, of someone who's like, well, the police came and attacked? You know what I mean? Usually it's a jury pool of thin blue line bootlickers, that usually allow. So even if it does go to a court case,
not really.
Even if you don't escalate,
juries are just random, are generally just random samplings of people.
Okay, show up in a Ron Paul shirt and tell me if you get.
Well, it depends, but it depends on if it's because it's both sides that pick the jury, right? It's both the prosecutor and the defendant, right? So if the defense is on a marijuana charge and you're wearing a Ron Paul shirt, they're probably going to pick you.
The prosecution's probably not going to want to approve it.
But then it's gonna. I've never been on jury duty.
Me neither.
Me neither.
And
never
I haven't either.
But then I hear people that live in like Baltimore City that have been on go to jury all the time, and I don't know. Maybe it's. But it's
a
like.
Bunch of
but I mean, okay, so I have a friend he's not a libertarian, but he's definitely anti-police. He's not vocally anti-police.
Mm-hmm.
On Facebook.
Does it even count, Jared?
Well, he's vocally. I'm saying he doesn't run a Facebook page. He's not even on Facebook. But he ended up on a jury.
I'm just thinking.
I mean, it's not like everybody on a jury is a bootlicker. I don't think that's.
I don't know.
Fair to say. Now there is a large portion of the population that are bootlickers, which I think is a huge problem.
All right. Well,
I'm just saying that's not necessarily true.
Well, I'm just saying let's take this onto the after hours, guys. We have a Patreon, and if you hit us up over at patreon.com/punk rock libertarians and contribute a minimum of $1 per month, you'll help keep the lights on down here in Anarchy Basement. We also have t-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you enter in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you'll receive a 10% discount. Until next time, live free
or die.
Done?
Think